Hello, Exceptional Living. I am so excited to be here live and in person in New York. Yay! And I am at a Chick-fil-A. This Chick-fil-A is a miracle. It is a visionary miracle. And I'm sitting here with the proprietor and owner, Mr. Marc Thompson. Hey, Marc.
What's going on, Exceptional Living podcast family? How y'all doing?
Man, I tell you, Marc, I'm going to ask a lot of questions because we want to know, how did this happen? What's your journey? And so I'm just going to turn it over to you and just let you share with our audience. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, Exceptional Living podcast family. I'm Marc Thompson Jr. I'm the proud owner, operator of Chick-fil-A 5 Towns in Rosedale, New York. It is literally in the backyard of where I grew up. And my journey to Chick-fil-A iterates through several years of corporate experience. I'm a finance guy, and the way I got into finance, I want to tell this story because I always like to honor the people responsible for where I am in life. Miss Constance Harris was my junior high school Spanish teacher, and one day she was at the front of the board conjugating a verb, and I don't know why, but this particular day I raised my hand and I asked her a question. I said, Miss Harris, what does your husband do for a living? And for all the teachers and people in the world, when a kid asks you a question, your answer can change their lives. So when I asked her the question, she said, my husband is an accountant. Do you know what that is? And now I have to admit, I lied at the time. I did not know what an accountant was, but I told her I did. And so from that day in junior high school, at 12 years old, if you asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I told you I wanted to be an accountant. I knew I wanted to be an accountant from the time I was 12 years old. And I said, because if accountants get beautiful women like this, I am going to be an accountant. And some people say I did pretty well. If you see my wife, Jessie Thompson, you can look up on it, social media at Coach Jessie. And I think you'll agree, I got a beautiful wife too.
Yes.
And so from college, I majored in accounting. My first job out of school was with the Associated Press. Then I worked for a small German conglomerate, G&J USA Publishing. Then I spent some time at the NFL working in their offices. And then I went to GE. And GE is where my career and my path really accelerated. And then I left. Some people say, why would you leave the NFL? Well, I left the NFL to go to GE because at the time, GE was the preeminent corporation in leadership development. And so for me, it was almost like Joseph going to Egypt to learn leadership. And, obviously I had influences in my life at that time, Dr. Miles E. Monroe being primary amongst them, where leadership was a big part of what he was teaching and depositing into my life. And so I think that leadership development training really served me well. And as I was going through the process with Chick-fil-A, where I really knew that this is what God had for me, was when I read It's My Pleasure, a book written by D. Turner, the former HR leader. When Dan Cathy, the former CEO, now executive chairman, he said he wanted Chick-fil-A to be the General Electric of quick service restaurants. And so once I saw that, I was like, yep, I got it. Because I went to Crotonville, which was GE's learning platform, 10 times. Now there's people that went more than the 10 I went, but very few people went more than 10 times. Because it was something that was really for the best of the best, and the training was the best of the best. And I was fortunate enough and graced enough to be able to go 10 times. So once I knew that that's the kind of leadership ethic that Chick-fil-A had, I knew it'd be a great fit for me. Wow.
So that's a journey in itself, but certainly it is something that, as we're listening today, there's even more people that were part of that. You mentioned Dr. Monroe, who we both had as a mentor.
Yes.
And he was so prolific in his writing.
Yes.
That he talked a lot about leadership, understanding purpose and conviction. Marc, to come from a corporate space of working for and to now ownership, that's a different journey.
Yes,
it is many dangers, toils, and snares.
Yes, it is amazing grace.
Yes. And much amazing grace. He talks about this in his book, especially The Burden of Freedom.
Yeah.
But tell us what were some other things that catapulted you? Because really it starts with your perception, right? How you perceive, what do you see? And you saw something more, but what contributed to you seeing more besides the accounting and the teacher in school?
The beautiful wife,
the beautiful wife.
Yeah, what I would say had played a disproportionate role in my development was Dr. Monroe's content. I call him Pop, so I'm just going to say Pop. Was Pop's content around potential, right? Specifically, understanding your potential, releasing your potential, and the book On Becoming a Leader. Those 3 books. Now, all of his books, masterful. And then on top of that, the book you mentioned, Burden of Freedom. All of them masterful, but those 4 books, if I were to say what were the pillars, those are the pillars. Why? Understanding your potential opened my mind up to what was possible with me. Releasing your potential gave me a theology of work that I didn't have. You know, I grew up in church, right? But I can't say my pastor ever gave a theology of work and make, you work because you had to, not because it was bringing something out of you that was going to be part of God's assignment for your life in the world. Like that, those connections weren't made. Pop made those connections in releasing your potential. On Becoming a Leader, made me understand that I could be a leader, right? And I could lead at an exceptional level. And then Burden of Freedom said, if you want to lead, if you want to release your potential, if you want to understand that everything I'm showing you about yourself is possible, then you're going to have to step up and take responsibility for a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so I would say it's that whole mindset that you have to be willing to be responsible for your own growth, your own development. Nobody's coming to rescue you. You're not going to hit the lotto. It's not going to happen.
What?
You're going to have to create it. Powerball didn't exist back then, but you're not going to hit Powerball. Like,
there you go.
None of. If you're going to go from not enough to abundance, it's going to take effort, work, energy, God's grace. It's what I call the 5 G's. We talk about 5G. It's going to take God's grace, your grit, your grind, your growth to His glory. That's what it's going to take.
Wait, you got to stop and say that again. The 5 G's.
Yeah. God's grace, your grit, your grind, your growth to His glory.
All right.
That's what it's going to take. And that's what I hope you see in the story that is my life.
Yeah. Well, I love that, the 5 G's. So even though I'm working from this phone, right, with 5 G's. So Marc, going back to that with work, like you said, your perception of work is simply the hustle. Like, this is what I gotta do just to make it. But you said something that was very poignant in the book. It said that work is an opportunity for you to release the God-given potential that's within you.
Yep.
And that's a different perspective. Who ever thought about that? I remember Dr. Rose saying, God didn't call you to job, He called you to work.
Yes.
And so even in the workplace where you were with GE and the work that you were doing, there's still an opportunity for you to develop your skill, to hone it, to learn. And you are telling us this because you said you went 10 times into an environment, and Mr. Welch is well known for his leadership style, even his story of where he grew up and how he became what he did.
He was a grinder for sure.
He was definitely a grinder. Yeah. And so you submitted yourself. I didn't say subjective, right? Because people think subjective is like you went down low, like it's very negative. But no, you submitted yourself willingly to learn. So talk to us how important mentors and coaches and having people around you that help kind of push you too, pull you a little, but do more pushing to where you are.
Shout out to Mr. Charles L. White. He is a very good friend of mine, mentor, somebody I love a lot. We worked at the NFL together, and one day he pulled me to the side and he says, "Marc, you're fat, black, and happy." And at the time, I was offended. And I didn't realize how fat I was, but I literally was fat, right? But he said to me, he says, "You could do more, but you're too happy being celebrated where you are here at the NFL. You can be better than what you're doing because they're not going to give you the opportunities you're supposed to have here. They're not taking you seriously." And when I tell you that crushed me, it crushed me, but it also motivated me. And so from that discussion, he and I sat down and we came up with a list of companies that I would want to work for. At the top of the list, no lie, GE was the number one.
Yeah.
And then he said, now we got to he taught me how to find the path, right? So then we say GE and we try to figure out who knows somebody at GE. My brother Scott Brown, shout out to Scotty B. He knew Archie Elam, shout out to Archie. Archie was at the time married to Deb Elam, shout out to Deb, who was a leader in HR at GE. So my resume ends up on a portal for accountant, for finance people at GE. And a guy named Roger Favano, shout out to Roger, he finds my resume. He calls me while I'm out in Arizona working for the league, doing an audit of the Arizona Cardinals to have a conversation about joining GE. And so nobody succeeds unless a lot of people want them to, April. And I have had a lot of people that cared about me and my success. So whether we're talking about Charles White, whether we're talking about, Elizabeth Arrington, a woman who, when I was young in church, the church I grew up in, she just loved Marc Thompson. Marc Thompson could do no wrong. From a young age, she just loved me. And she's gone home to be with the Lord many years now, but she loved me. I come from a family where I was really loved. My mother, my grandmother, my grandparents, they sacrificed, they invested. So, there's a saying, are you raised up or are you dragged up? I was definitely raised up. I wasn't dragged up. I have a strong family. What I tell people all the time, even in this role, Chick-fil-A may one day decide something, we don't work well together, and they can take away Chick-fil-A owner-operator, but they can't take away the last name Thompson. Right? I am the embodiment of what it means to be a Thompson, and I take great pride in representing my family. And so what I would say is my first mentors are my family, and then God graced me with other mentors, preachers, leaders, Dr. Monroe, Dr. Cole, Dr. Price, Dr. Bernard, and then a lot of loving ladies like Elizabeth Arrington, Pearl Washington. These people just, they disciplined me, but they also loved me a lot.
Yeah.
Farrah Mae Whitted, like these people just loved me. So on top of my family, on top of my friends, I had these women and men in church who were very instrumental in helping shape me and who I am.
I love that, Marc, because it is a circle, not just a word circle, but it also can be a circle of people that you're selective, you look for, that have similar values, conviction. And I like when you said that sometimes they, kind of push you, say, hey, Marc, you could do better. There's more, you're better than this. And sometimes people can look at that as negative. And I had to look at it as well from persons in my life that say, you can do better than this, you are better than this, to say they see something be above. And I remember the first time being in Nassau at the Global Summit with Dr. Monroe, and him inviting me into this space, this room that was much bigger than mine, and certainly international. I mean, there are people here who are heads of state, government, scientists, and all these. And I'm like, what am I in this room for? And a lot of times, mentors and coaches see more in us than we see in ourselves. And sometimes we start off that way, Marc. Just honestly, right? You're like you were saying. He pulled you over and he said, hey, Marc, you're never going to get to where I believe you're trying to go in this. And although it's hard truths, it's done in love. Because again, they see more, and they know that you deserve better. So, in that journey space, Marc, of where you are now, you met another person who has certainly had a big impact on your life. You spoke a little bit about her earlier. Miss Jessie.
Absolutely.
What was it? How did you know she was the one? Because a lot of people are like, okay, how do you know, Marc? You're a astute businessman. You were successful. How did you find your good thing? And how did you know that Jessie was the one?
So let's be clear, right? I was broke when Jessie met me. So the way I knew she was the right one, our very first date, right, is we went to a McDonald's. And I put my wallet on the table. I put her wallet on the table. I asked her to put her wallet on the table, and I told her these two will never be combined. Right? It wasn't the wisest thing I've ever done. Right? But the fact that she could handle going to McDonald's said to me she didn't really care about the aesthetics. She wanted to get to know me as a person. Right? And my thought was, because I could have afforded to take her to somewhere much nicer than the McDonald's, right? But I wanted to see her response. And it was no big deal to her. She just wanted to spend whatever time getting to know me. And I just wanted to spend whatever time getting to know her. So what I always tell people about relationships is you never know. You know, the Bible talks about being a helpmeet.
Yes.
And being a girl dad has expanded all my thinking about that, right? So we could talk about that on another time, but the idea is suitable, adaptable, and fit to help. And so what you're hoping for is a person that can grow with you as you grow. And you don't have any guarantees, it's all hopes.
Right.
But the fact that she was a person reading the kind of things that I read, attending the kind of conferences that I attended, we went to the same church, so having very similar grounding gave me hope that we would have the ability to grow together.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say.
And that's important too, because you know who you surround yourself with, the law of association, right?
Yes.
That you become like those you associate with.
Yeah.
So even certainly starting from your life partner, your wife, even to your business associates, you know, and going back to something you talked about earlier, you had this conviction that there was more, right? You had a mentor, someone who told that to you, and you kind of, you had to trust him to say, okay, I'm going to walk this with you because you've already seen a little further than me, so I'm trusting to walk with you. And that's really like our relationship with Christ, right? He says, this is what I have for you. This is the vision I've shown you. And so our lives are really us walking out to get to what he's already seen for our lives.
Yes.
But with that, there's some rights with that, but there's responsibility, there's accountability. And so how does one show this and demonstrate this? You know, we owe it certainly to God, our Creator, to our family, as we say, we're our ancestors' wildest dreams.
That's
all
it.
these slogans.
Yeah.
But how have you used that to really lead your life to where you are now as a Chick-fil-A owner, and as Marc first as Marc Thompson Jr. and then as an owner?
Yeah. Well, what I'll say is, I always want to make my family proud. Like. There are a lot of people who talk about being mama's boys. I'm a mama's boy. I love my mama, right?
Don't talk about his mom.
Yeah, but my mother raised me to be a man, right? My second dad, he raised me to be a man. My grandfather, my grandmother, they raised me to be a man. So making them proud motivates me every day, right? Like and for them to be proud is not just my accomplishments. Certainly my accomplishments have made them proud, but it's the kind of person that I am.
Yes.
And that's because, you know, it's a reflection of the values and the character and the work ethic that they instilled in me. So yeah, as Marc Thompson, making my family proud, job one.
You got a legacy builder too, right? A little legacy builder who's already doing incredible things.
Because, you know, for me, and this is the hard part, right? I'm the last Thompson man standing. My father was an only boy. My grandfather was an only boy. So I am whatever the Thompson name is gonna mean, right? My grandfather had to operate in a segregated South, so he didn't get to extend and express all of his potential. My father, addled by mental health issues and some other things, he didn't get to express his full existence, and he died at an early age, at 47 years old. So whatever the Thompson name is going to mean in the world, it's up to me. And I take that real seriously. So creating value around the Thompson name drives me. So that's the legacy part. And so, you know, having my daughter, Mia, who is involved in the arts and creative expression and all of this stuff, it matters that she can carry a name that has some weight to it. And that she can add weight to the name. Yes. And, you know, when it comes time for her, hopefully, to find this life partner, like, she got to think, do I really want to trade out what Pop is giving versus what this dude is offering? I want it to be a hard decision.
I will tell you, the bar will be high, right?
Yeah. That's the goal.
But Jesse and you together, like you said, it's a partnership. It's a team effort, and you work together. You know, and I love it because she shines in what she does. And Jesse is about making people's lives better and healthier. And she has a powerful testimony, so we'll have to get her on here as well. But together, what you're doing in both of your businesses is changing people.
Yes.
And I heard you say, you know, out of all the successful it's what you are and who you are as a person that will matter, right? What you do proceeds from who you are.
Yes.
So the good things that you do, the lives that you change, is because that's who Marc Thompson is as a person.
Yeah.
Now, Marc, you've got these 5 G's that you live that are part of your life, that are really crucial to your life. Share with us these 5 G's. Just wait, listen to these 5 G's.
Yeah, so it's God's grace. Like, I am who I am because of God's grace. I was born into the family I was born into because of God's grace. And then it's grit and grind, like that work ethic, that theology of work. Like, God graces me with the energy, the intellect, the ability, the skills to develop my skills, to express my potential in the world, like grit and grind. And I grow, right? And that growth is both as a person, as a leader, as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a friend, as a brother. All of that growth is to His glory. So it's His grace, my grit and grind, growth to His glory.
And we thought it was just 5G for the network. But that's so powerful. And those are really in every area of life. So whether someone owns a restaurant, whether you are an entrepreneur, or even if you're an entrepreneur, right, working inside of a corporate environment, because that's really, Marc, as you were sharing with us earlier, where you begin to kind of develop through your matriculation into corporate and in different areas, that you are the CEO of your brand, which is you as the individual.
Yes.
Because when people get you, and I've heard people like Jake's ass and Dr. Trumdell say, when people get you, what do they get? That's a very loaded question, right? What do people get when they get you? Because it's not just your accomplishments. Your accomplishments are really the results of what you are as a person, your drive, your grit, your grind, also your knowledge, right? Your competency, your capacity, and certainly your character. And that's what I talk about, or credibility, right? I talk about credibility is 3 C's. So you got 5 G's, I got 3 C's. I say it's your character, it's your competency, and it's your capacity.
Nice.
Because what even your story evidence is that in the NFL, he saw that you had the capacity for more. Sometimes we don't always see it. We're doing well, like you said. You were chilling, right?
I was happy.
You were chilling, right? You were happy and fat. But there's more beyond, and that is part of vision. And vision is so powerful. But let's be honest, Marc. Sometimes you get in a place, you got this great vision, your expectations are high, and then the reality sets in. There's a setback, there's a disappointment. I mean, even this Chick-fil-A that we're sitting at now, this just didn't happen in the last 18 months.
That's
right?
it.
Talk to us about what can one do in the middle of setbacks. What did you do? It just, in your life, what's your mantra? How do you operate by?
So, particularly like at the NFL, I got passed over for promotion 3 times. Wow. Where there was a role that was, I thought, fit for me, and they chose somebody else 3 different times. And at the time, my mentor, who is now the commissioner, Roger Goodell, I went to him and I said, Roger, here's what's gonna happen. I said, I got passed over 3 times. I'm not asking you to do anything for me. I got this. I said, I'm gonna go out to the marketplace and I'm gonna come back in 90 days and I'm gonna have 3 job offers, and you're gonna help me sort through these 3 jobs. And he's like, Marc, I'm not paying you to go find new jobs. I go, no, I'm not gonna cheat the league. I said, I'll use my personal time. I'll do whatever for the interviews. I'm not going to cheat the league. Wow. I said, but I'm going to go and I'm going to show you that in the marketplace that I'm valuable and somebody wants these skills that the NFL seems to be overlooking. And he's like, okay, but don't risk it. If you do anything, I will fire you. Like, Roger's that guy. So I went and found 3 job interviews: Ajax Corporation, Alcatel, and GE. And I decided on GE. So glad I decided on GE because it just changed my life. You get to GE, I got promoted to the job that the NFL had been passing me over for within 6 months. But then at GE, I ran into situations where people thought I wanted more faster than I should have. And when your desires are ahead of what people think you deserve, it can create some friction. And so people would say stuff to me, like I had one guy say to me, Marc, I can promote you, or I can pay you more money. What would you prefer? I said, I don't have to choose. I said, if you promote me, the money comes with the promotion.
It should.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, but it was those kinds of things. And so I got passed over a couple of times for some jobs and stuff. But the thing that kept me focused was that I knew that I had the capacity and the ability to do what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So I wasn't needing a grace curve. I wasn't needing somebody just giving me favor. I knew I could do the job. And I was just trusting that at the right time and at the right moment. Like my friends and I, we debate this a lot. They use the word sovereignty, they use the word providence. I hate both of those words because they've been used in context to explain things that don't make sense to me. So it was for me, I needed to be prepared. And some of it was the testing of my mettle. Could I be overlooked without erupting in anger? Could I be passed over without now leaving the room, walking off the job just because I didn't get what I wanted at the time I wanted it? Because all of that for me was the character building. And Pop helped me with that because there's a sermon he preached years ago that talked about perseverance, and he talked about how swords are put in the heat, then put in the ice cold, then put back in the heat. Why? To continue to refine the impurities in the metal and to strengthen the metal. So I saw those as opportunities to be strengthened through the process of heat and cold, and I think I'm a sharper sword because I went through those experiences.
Absolutely. And to that point, the metals that we're wearing today, right? People think of it, it's a process. But it says the trying of our faith.
Yes.
Right? So it's going to be tried, it's going to be tested, but the end is for a great reward to our patience.
Yep.
So you certainly have done that here with this restaurant. So tell us, why here?
Why Chick-fil-A?
Why Chick-fil-A and why here? Where you grew up? Yeah.
So why Chick-fil-A is easy? Well, why here first, right? So my whole life, I knew I love my people, I love my community, I love where I grew up. And I knew God wanted to use me and what he was doing with my life to tell a story to my community. I'm from where it happens. Like, there are narratives written about the community I grew up in, hip hop stories told about the community I grew up in. I could name some names that everybody would recognize as people from Southside Queens, and I know of or are connected to many of them, right? And I knew Southside Queens. See, what people don't know about South Jamaica, we're known for the hip hop, we're known for the drugs, but people don't know we are still the highest home ownership of Black Americans in the country. Like South Jamaica, we own our houses. We were a middle class neighborhood that was bludgeoned by drugs, right? And I knew God wanted to use me as a member of that community just to stay relevant and connected. But I didn't know how he was going to do it. No, you don't know that I work for the NFL. You don't know that I work for GE. You don't know that I'm an executive. So when I got involved in the Chick-fil-A process and they asked me where I wanted to be, they asked me did I want to be in Queens or did I want to be in New York City. Now they putting up some real numbers in New York City. Like the operators are putting up real numbers. And I hope to put up real numbers in Queens. But at the time, what I said to them was, I said, I want to be in Queens. I said, because you can get when you go to college, you can have the commuter student or the residential student. Now they both get the same education, but one is transactional, the commuter student, and one is transformational, the residential student. And I said, I want to have the opportunity to have a transformational effect on my community. And so being in this community with Chick-fil-A. Now, why Chick-fil-A versus anything else? One, its values resonates with my values, right? Yeah. Now, throughout my corporate career, I never hid the fact that I was a Christian. I had many people come up to me, ask me to pray with them, all that kind of stuff. But I also wasn't going around thumping the Bible, quoting scriptures, right? I was just handling my business. Now, this is not a Christian business. This is a business. I happen to be a Christian, and they don't have a problem with that, right? And so my full self can be engaged. And that just resonated with me. Then the brand itself and the quality of the products and everything else, it just all made sense. And then when we got to the location, and I was like, this is my backyard. Like, I know this place. I know these people. I know this community. And so, and again, I think it's, God's grace that it all came to pass.
Absolutely. So I guess you're telling us to eat more chicken.
Eat more chicken. Absolutely. Eat more chicken.
So if you're in South Queens, you have to come here to
That's
eat
it.
more chicken. Marc has
That's
said
it.
that.
That's it.
Marc, thank you so much for being here today. Before we go, though,
Okay.
2 questions.
Cool.
What would the man you are today say to the boy that you were? And lastly, just some closing thoughts. But first, what would the man you are today say to the boy that you were?
So the 53-year-old Marc would say to the, let's say, 12-year-old Marc that the people you associate with are going to make all the difference in the world. Shout out to my brother Drew. So I have no biological brothers. Everybody you hear me call a brother is because their love and loyalty, right? And my brother Andre, my deceased brother Hassan, I just got a lot of brothers and a lot of sisters. I have three biological sisters, 2 biological sisters. One I deal with, one I don't. But your associations, Marc, your 12-year-old Marc, your associations are gonna make all the difference in the world. And if you had to choose between wisdom and money, choose wisdom. Because wisdom will produce money. Money doesn't necessarily produce wisdom.
I love it. Wisdom. Choose wisdom. Wisdom is the principal thing. And that's scriptural, right? It towers above everything else.
Yes, it does.
Because wisdom actually allows you, it says that you get knowledge, right? And all you're getting is understanding.
Yeah.
But it is the knowledge that you get, you understand it, but the wisdom is the evidence, the demonstrated application of the knowledge that you've gotten.
Yes.
So to see your community, where you grew up, your quote backyard, literally, right? To say that there is a need for opportunity, for access, for transformation. And I can do this through the vehicle of a restaurant. Not just the employees, but those who come and partake of this restaurant. And also create legacy for your family. Marc, thank you for being with us today. This has been amazing. I am so excited. I'm showing some shots here. You can see there's Marc, there's the Chick-fil-A, our story. And thank you so much. So I tell you, family, this has been amazing. I'm so excited to be here in New York. Thank you again, Marc, for just following your passion, your vision, but what God has placed into your heart to bring change to the world. So we speak blessing. We speak more Chick-fil-A's or whatever else it is that your territory is. But we know that it's going to be, lastly, that last 5G to the glory of God.
And shout out to Bishop and Mrs. Ripley as well, for sure. Got to show love to mom and dad.
Thanks. We're all created. So thank you again. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. Bye.